welcome to my lovely IHP community and the 5D collective. To anyone who's new, today we get to chit chat about being yourself. It is knowing and fully accepting yourself with flaws, love, and integrity. As I shared a bit on those lovely shorts that we had, one, we're all an embodied brain. I think I shared that Stephen Porges' name, and if you don't know him, he's the polyvagal theory doctor who's still working to build the data to show and prove his theory. But in the meantime, all the good therapists that I've learned from, mindfulness practitioners, all of it, yoga, you name it, they all will inform you, like I am right now, that you will either know how to navigate your ventral energy and therefore your social engagement system, or you will want to learn it. And that's why mindfulness mindset and mindset practice is important. But the only way you're going to actively be completely in the groove of things is if you have a child that is whole. So you are a functional child adult. So you're a non-traumatized human being with secure attachment who is led by your higher self. That's the moment of truth where I'm going to know who you are, not only as a 5D mystic in the Enlightenment Soul Age group who's a functional adult with my inner child adult here, but also as a person who's informed for the past 3 years and plus and growing. Okay, so when I began IHP and the inner growth mindset, be yourself, I didn't realize that the structure of your nervous system is what counts, because until you actively accept yourself with all your flaws, you're going to hide a bunch of stuff between exiles, protectors, you name it, alters, states of self. I see people every day, not all the time, but when I do on YouTube every day, I can tell when it's a Peter Pan with the lost boys, and then when I'm out also and about, I can also tell when I'm around the pause self people who think that their personality type, pattern, everything, persona is who they are, and they're not an active person who lives from the restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating ventral energy. So I use words my own way, but the point is they're not living a healthy life. And there's a fancy lady in a suit who makes my point. In fact, she doesn't know the land of truth, neutrality, like a lot of other people who don't understand that trauma charges are what actually come up when you meet a non-traumatized person. Because that's what I learned from the smart people. So when you look in my eyes and when I look in somebody else's eyes, I have self-empowered, enlightened Maria, higher self, because her 1-year-old, her 3-year-old, and all of my child parts are right here. And I will consistently stand up for myself independently from who is on the other end of the spectrum, and not with hypervigilance, but with an empowered stance. That's thanks to me at my very own age of 3 saying, hey mom, you can't spank me, meaning that that's proof in the pudding for myself to know how to explain to you all the trauma attachment information. I apply it and like, yep. And I got to ask the question to Dr. Daniel Siegel, who's the one who told me, oh, great, you were already a differentiated self. So I stood up for myself, said, you can't spank me. It was a little spanking. I go to make my suitcase once she's done. That shows you my capacity to be my own self-agent. And that 3-year-old, she's to this day right here in front of you, which is where it will consistently be me working with myself and my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old, because that's a securely attached, non-traumatized person. So I don't do trauma time. I don't do karma. I do dharma, words that mean something and that I can actively know how you'll be embodying one or the other. I won't be telling you anything about karma or dharma though, unless there's a journey we're on together and therefore you want the truth, which means that you'll take it and then you'll roll with the punches. No, then you'll put into practice mindset, mindfulness, mindset, and or if you need a therapist, you go and do therapy. Healing trauma is very important. While I see people demonizing and romanticizing a bunch of shit and not proactively getting themselves to become the autonomous self-agent. So that's what's missing on YouTube, by the way. So I'm going to try and help you understand. When you see people following each other and cheering each other on in a very specific way, number one, obviously their motivator is bonding. And that's where you find flat earthers and 144,000. They consistently need each other to continue feeling alive. And the sad part is they could totally take introspection and introception to the next level by noticing, okay, yes, I'm a mammal. I want to share life with another person and more. So you want at least one securely attached human being. That's what we all will want, but you don't need it. So you know how to be independent of it. Again, securely attached people, non-traumatized. That's you being able to be yourself, and that's you knowing yourself with your flaws and accepting them. So I'm a sensitive person. I accept that. I'm a warrior. I accept that. So when Maria has any of her shit going down, she is the best source of my own sense of safety and security, because I'm at ease, because I don't shame, blame, fault, or revenge. I don't have an inner critic or outer critic. I don't say there's a demon outside, there's some energy vampire, somebody is to blame, to be blamed. Something has been given to me that's so hard, I can't handle it. Oh my gosh, Zen Master, come on in with his lovely laundry. So people who don't use their prefrontal cortex when they have the capacity to use it, it's because they choose to give you a narrative. We talked about mindfulness daily life, the courage to deal with the unknown using your prefrontal cortex and ventral. Doing it all the time. To this day, I walk a walk, talk a talk. Doesn't make me happy or sad. The panic attacks, worst thing about the light body, light body, light body, rainbow body. Meaning that's the most dreadful quote unquote part. And I say quote unquote because even as it was happening, I'm like, your light body's expanding. And then I got more courses that proved it. So as a 5D mystic, what I can tell you is nobody loses people. Spirituality growth doesn't happen when you hear people saying, oh, you're going to lose people because those people are trying to hold you back. Wow, that sounds pretty much like the non-bilaterally integrated adaptive child part who is being led by a teenager version of their self with the fight response like the fancy lady in a suit. And they have a group that is the better group because, so you work with that here. That's your own capacity to become selfless and to enter timelessness and then to enter effortlessness and richness, and that's the flow state. Awesome. I didn't do any yoga until I met Sadhguru, and when I did, I'm like, this is cool, but I didn't need the yoga. Why? Because I have a ventral vagal engaged thanks to knowing how to be a self-regulating human being because I got secure attachment. My personality patterns don't rule me. My temperament doesn't rule me. Why? Because I'm mindfully aware of my tone because my mother made me aware of it. And because I care to live a life of meaning and connection beyond the soul self. Because Jesus and God taught me it. And my mother, and I have a twin. But Jesus and God taught me that you're my brothers and sisters. And Jesus taught me to forgive. And Stephen Porges confirms this. So when a quote like this, Denzel Washington, some people will never like you because your spirit irritates their demons, gets spread around YouTube, guess what? Guess who's all over this one? With their stories. So here's the part of where spirit, Jesus, God, I will talk from a place of faith, because the one thing that will always get a person that is of faith to notice, liar, 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 liar. I'm empowered with knowledge. There's no demons in the body of anyone. Number one, I have non-traumatized eyes. If you have any trauma charges, shit gonna come up. That's explained by one of my many courses, and this one was with Ruth Lanius and Bethany, as we look at dissociative disorders, and I've taken more than just one on dissociative disorders. There's Dr. Daniel Fox, who helps people with personality disorders, all healable. Okay, so what is coming up ain't no demon, and you better bet the 4D who talks about energy vampires and dark auras is being very insulting to their brothers and sisters who can heal that which is trauma stuff with good therapists in time. Might take 20 years, might take 30. We don't know. The point is, though, that the spirit doesn't irritate demons in the body of another because we're all part of the same energetic cloth, which is the one thing while with God I was taught in catechism stories, and then I moved into becoming a mystic with clairs, which to this day there are Christian Catholic mystics out there telling people, look, Jesus stands for us coming together. God stands for us coming together. Please disregard the ones who are in the medieval times and allow them to be where they are because they're there for the 3D collective who does not have the capacity to fathom that healing is part of, mental health. Wow. I mean, so straightforward. You'd really think that people would be like, I'm all over mental health. Let me go get my brain integrated. Versus no, but then again, we have 4D as well, so let's remember 3D, 4D, and there's a reason it's called free will. The free will that Robert Sapolsky with Determined says we don't have. It's also called self, and some people tell you that it's an illusion, the self, as well as free will. So the ones who are talking to you in ways of giving you things that I'm going to say, I get it. So hypothetically, with no free will and no self, there's one thing I'm going to let you know. 5D Collective are all beautifully full of love. No trauma charges, leading with a healthy self-worth gut and a person then that knows equanimity and is their higher self. 5D Collective, higher self-led people. Bilateral vertical overall integration, so the shit don't come up because you process it. with a hug and more, and you allow the emotions to come forth in a healthy, self-soothing manner thanks to mindfulness daily life practices, because that's how easy it is when you don't lose yourself because you love yourself first, because duh, if you plug my fucking nose, I'm gonna leave. So that's where being yourself with the higher self and with integrity and with your flaws means this is who I am. You don't have to like me. Nobody asked you to. I'm not going to feel weighed down because you tell me, eh. And the people who instead don't have this capacity, you will see them continuing to just act like they're leaders, but their body is full of, it's all closed up. So they like my spirit will irritate somebody. No, your spirit doesn't irritate somebody. You, if you're non-traumatized, may irritate somebody, which means simply that parts of their charges come up. Also, what happens when you have toxic people, like Patrick Tian points out, they make sense of their toxic relationships. Low self-esteem, indirect communicators, passive-aggressive, and then they just keep doing what Cuscos do and squirrels of Cusco, and there's no Pacha. I mean, really, when you meet Pachas, that's why it's a whole different story, Pacha and Cusco dynamic. They're people who get to be their self. We get to share our quirks, our flaws, and then we get to tease it. Oh, and we get to expand each other. So by being around each other, every one of us consistently expands to become more of the human consciousness potential. Okay, so tapping into your infinite higher human conscious potential only happens with a bilateral, vertical, and overall integrated brain. You have a non-traumatized body because you do have the capacity to handle sensations, images, affects, meanings, and behaviors, because you do have all your child parts asleep. You don't need reparenting. Until that day, the reparenting part is the number one objective of anybody who cares to be their true self. And that's because Patrick Tihan, as he points out, you don't have to forgive anyone. I don't know what it's like to have childhood trauma that way, okay? But if anybody is with his group, I understand what he's saying. So for the ones of us who instead we do forgive, we are already in a space of equanimity, we understand that not everybody might like how we talk about the way we're moving forward in the future. Like some of those sciences people, they don't want to heal all trauma. Like some of the religious people, they think decentralization is bad, versus understanding that the body is actually healing itself. And as Jesus points out, the kingdom of God is within us. And as Sadhguru points out, yeah, the seed of enlightenment is within you. And as every smart therapist will point out who's somatically informed, your nervous system is of 1, 2, 3 ways it works. You want to be in your ventral vagal, not your sympathetic and dorsal vagal. And if instead you still have that going on, that's a modulated embodiment person with dysregulation. And yeah, I've seen in my courses how they say, so we have to stay modulated, and the stare of the experts who say, oh, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this reminds me of high school again. I don't understand. Oh, yes, I do. Stephen Porges explains what happens when people are biologically rude. They're not doing it on purpose. Their non-bilaterally integrated brain is leading with a little chit-chatter, with an opinion, with little fists, and they didn't hear anything that just came out of the expert's mouth, which is your health is restorative embodiment. And you want to create resiliency to move into that one so that you can get out of modulated and dysregulated. And you thinking that you need to stay in sympathetic because you're going to fight the little war you think you're fighting because your 16-year-old's in the room, because you think righteousness means that I am actually a leader. Yeah, there's no righteousness in that. There's basically a tired body that's living with yesterday's news and words. Again, this is why the words I have to use to explain something, but a person who's modulated ain't no leader. They're dumbed down because their amygdala is alerted, and I already know they're not using their prefrontal. They may be effective in a moment if I need you like that, but other than that, you're not going to be effective when it comes to contemplating in the future. Because you're using yesterday's news, because your amygdala has been alerted, because you got into a defense posture, because you're using that which is from temporal junction, and you are defensive, which means that your blinders are on. Your ears are dumbed down. Everything of you has made you into a less effective person. Listener, spokesperson, all of it. Which, if you are objective with yourself, I've noticed it about myself as I learned how to silence and calm, and this is with a couple of people alone, my twin and my mother. Those are the two people that, if there's any of the two people that taught me how to work with the ears and with that, is them. But in course material, I'm consistently aware of it because I want to hear what they have to say, because they say, hey, it's okay, you have your own opinion. You don't have to chime in when the expert's talking. They're not proving or disproving yet anything. We'll wait till you hear the explanation. So smart people, They like to learn. And they don't get picky with words in a way of making it a good or bad thing. We all have a way with words, by the way, though. So some could say that we all can be picky, and essentially there are thoughts and feelings that accompany words. So, like, yes, for me there are words that create emotions, and I look to consistently work with that. And that's something that mindfully living, loving people do. And we don't say it's laundry zen master. So what I'm trying to get at is that those who love to love and love to laugh and love to live and love to learn, expand, 5D Collective, welcome aboard. So a Mystic Mentor Content Creator podcast host who's here to say being yourself is knowing all of that which can irritate you and not making it into a truth or not a truth. And also then recognizing that we all can have that similar love language, meaning somebody might like other words, we might like these words, and then accepting that some people won't be moving into becoming equanimous and loving, and actually knowing that, yeah, spirit again doesn't create demons. What happens is non-traumatized individuals, as I was explained by smart sciences people, the ones who do the research, the ones who are helping, I look in your eyes. If you have unhealed trauma charges or unhealed whatever it is, you got something, it'll come up. If you're grown up and you're mindfully living and loving and spiritually living and loving, and so like me, you are a happy human being who doesn't do let me project shit at you, but you do, oh look, I got a feeling coming up and I can share it and we talk. That's the part of the difference between those who instead use the emotion with the charge in the absence of being self-aware, accountable, regulating, and saying I don't need to be irritated with a person just because they're different. I want to continue. And that's only if their amygdala alerts them to the interest of continuing, which if they're in a not securely attached body, they won't, like my facade friend. They're actively self-fulfilling prophecies. Karma people are playing out. Every time they're interacting with you, they're not there because of mindfully wanting to be there. It's more like it's something that happened. And so we'll continue this in another episode, not today, but at the end of the day, for those of us who are being ourselves, doesn't change our relationship. We just end up finding out, okay, I got to pause self as a friend. And there you go. So we don't get rid of anybody. That's why you don't lose people as a mystic. And that's also why spirit, again, source, God, it's all one and the same. It's an intelligence that is led with love. Intelligence can only come with love, not anger. Anger is about correcting. I don't need to correct your behavior because I ain't your mama, I ain't your papa. A higher self-led person will be a functional inner child adult. So an empowered human being will be able to speak to quantumously, and the fancy lady in the fucking suit makes my point to where she has no fucking idea what emotions mean. Except for hers in the and that's when you meet anybody. I'm not decent enough to be saluted. I mean, an unhealthy self-worth person. Not going to use my time. Your ears are flopped down. Again, whatever I say, it doesn't matter. But I will make sure to reiterate my healthy boundaries in a way that is of the grown-up plane, which I did. And you all know the story enough. So at the end of the day, we all have integrity. Nobody has shame when you're pure love, because we all are flawed and imperfect. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be myself. And I do know myself. So fully accepting where I have weaknesses and strengths, but with my solo self wanting to share respect for all. So I stay neutral here because you're not in any way physically endangering me. I don't need to get mentally, emotionally charged as I'm interacting. It doesn't matter to what degree. And if I do, then I will have something to practice, because mental, emotion, physical mastery as an Akashic record reader and as a person who's talking to you about creating that restored embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating resiliency, is what you do. So every time I get an opportunity to deal with the unknown, I'm using that courage with my ventral and with my prefrontal, and I'm allowing Maria to express all that she can be without any shame of it. And then you surround yourself with people who welcome you just the way you are, because that's actually the only way that any healthy self-worth woman, man, or they is going to navigate life. Of the 5D Collective, we do not have people who will not support us with our quirks in a way of having us smile about the quirks. So expanding each other, bringing the best out of each other. That's empowered counterparts. That's empowered family. That's empowered everyone. And it's because we have compersion. We want to see each other happy. Though nobody is afraid of losing anything, and nobody has envy, jealousy, or spite, and any of that. And anybody who does, when they get a good therapist, they're able to work through that, because anybody who feels that towards their loved ones will have had something take place that is going to be healed. And there are plenty of stories that will come with that one too, of therapists saying, of course, you have this feeling because, and they'll present to them the psychoeducation, and then they'll keep processing it. As long as you choose to stay open-hearted and to be forgiving and loving and compassionate and to put your best feet forward, you're going to keep moving forward like a little choo-choo train. And so resiliency and the restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating life as yourself. Tune in for more. Like, share, and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. Thanks for stopping by.